Good morning. Please can I welcome everyone to this meeting of the Cabinet Member for Housing and Asset Management Decision Day, taking place in the Walton Suite, Winchester, Guildhall. The time is 11 o'clock AM. I am Councillor Kelsey Learney, Chairperson and Cabinet Member for Housing and Asset Management. Please can I advise that this meeting is being audio recorded and live streamed from the Council's website. In addition, a video recording of the meeting will be uploaded to the Council's YouTube channel after the meeting. Please can I remind any officers joining virtually to turn off their cameras and mute their microphones until invited to speak. Please can I also remind members to speak clearly and remember to use your microphone. Finally, please can I ask everyone to ensure that mobile phones and other electronic devices are on silent or switched off entirely. Moving to the agenda, item 1 is disclosure of interests. Does anyone have any interest to declare in the meeting today? No, that's none indicated. Item 2, public participation. At this point, I will note that Monica Gill from TACT has sent her apologies, so isn't here this morning. But we do have Mr. Ian Tate, who's asked to speak during public participation. So, Mr. Tate, would you like to come forward and speak?
Madam Chair, it was specifically to do with item number 6. So, having been here already today, your colleague invited me to speak at the start of that item, which I would happily do, or come up now, whichever suits you better.
Oh, whichever suits you, Mr. Tate.
If I may, I'll wait for that.
Yeah, certainly that's fine. So we'll note that. I also have to speak. I have Councillor Caroline Horrell, who wishes to speak on all 3 decisions. So I will take those as they arise, if that's all right, Councillor Horrell.
Chair, it's, if I may, my priority is item 6, not 4 or 5. Thank you.
Right, okay, thank you. I also note we have Councillor Kern in the room. Are you just observing this morning, Councillor Kern?
This is Zoe.
Right, okay, thank you very much. So moving on to item 4. Now we do have a major change to this item, but I thought that rather than withdraw the paper, it would be better for us to explain what's happened in order to move forward. So I'll hand over to Mrs. Adey to present.
Thank you very much. Good morning. So this paper is brought to you today to make a decision to transfer some land, 16 hectares of land of open space at Wellington Park, Waterlooville. This land was part of the development there and was transferred to Winchester City Council, as the parish council didn't at the time exist, and we've held this land until the parish council has been put together, started, and is now able to take the transfer of this land. This paper presents to you the transfer of the land and the maintenance funds to go with it, which we currently also hold, but agreed in the section 106 would be transferred to the appropriate parish council at the appropriate time. On reviewing the report this morning, I noticed that it would appear that a step has not been taken that should be taken on transfer of open land. So the change to the paper this morning is for us to advertise this open land and then bring this back to you for decision once the land has been advertised.
Right, thank you very much. Can you tell me what the earliest time will be when we'll be able to bring that back for decision?
We're looking at that this morning, so we're looking to see if we can get the advert out pre-PERDA. If we can do that, we'll do as quickly as possible. We're trying to get it in, but it's 2 weeks to PERDA, so we're just working out dates. But that's the ambition this morning, is to bring it back as soon as possible. Right,
thank you. Yeah, having reviewed it myself this morning, then having considered it carefully, as was said, we could have simply withdrawn the paper, but that would have left the public rather confused about what's going on. I think it's important to say that we are still committed to moving forward to transferring the land to the parish council, because we think it's more appropriate that that open space be managed by local people in the interests of local people. But clearly we do need to give the opportunity for that advert to be placed. So in the light of that, I propose that we change the recommendation. Do you have words, or shall I give it a go, Mrs. Adey?
Could you recommend that the council takes the appropriate action to advertise the open space as described in this paper? If we could insert the words for the correct description of the land to be advertised, would that be?
Right, have you got that, Claire?
Yes, I've got a note of that,
Yeah.
so we'll prepare that.
Yeah, so I recommend, as Mrs. Adey said, that we advertise the land appropriately, and also that be brought back for a decision after the opportunity to consider the outcome of that advert at the earliest possible opportunity. Right,
Yeah.
okay, thank you very much. So clearly I'll obviously need to agree that formally when the recommendation is properly written out.
Yes.
So if we can move on to item 5, designated protected area waiver. And we have Mr. Baldwin and Mr. Botham in the room to deal with this item. Mr. Baldwin, are you presenting?
Yeah, sorry, yes, I'm Dr. Baldwin. I'm the Housing and Ageing Officer, and I'm going to say a few words about the report, which of course is available for people to peruse. The request in the report is for the service lead in the Homes delivery team, that's Andrew Palmer, to apply to Homes England for a waiver on the designated protected area, which Homes England designated. A designated protected area in this particular case relates to the area covered by Kirkridge Parish Council, and DPAs in general, designated protected areas, I'm going to refer to as DPAs, that they allow for the retention of shared ownership of affordable homes in rural areas. The particular decision that we're seeking today is to do with the North Whiteley major development area, which that particular site covers the parishes, within the parishes of Kirkridge and Whiteley, but it's only the Kirkridge bit that we're seeking the DPA for. As the site at North Whiteley will deliver over 3,500 homes, it's not considered to be a rural area, and so the waiver is requested to allow for affordable housing shared ownership, so that people can purchase the whole of their home where housing grants can use.
Right, thank you. Have we had much experience of the sale of shared ownership homes in this area, or is it still early days?
In this particular area, we have not had much experience, but we have had at Kingswood, for example.
Right. Yeah. Thank you. In terms of the paper, I am well aware of some of the concerns around shared ownership and the ability of part owners to pass on those homes onto other people. I think the the idea of shared home ownership was always that ultimately the people would move into fully market homes, allowing other people to get on the housing ladder in this way. I think it is a concern that some of the restrictions around the DPA designation do make it more difficult for people to sell on and indeed buy these homes moving forward. I am really pleased that we are seeing an increase in the percentage of shared ownership and other forms of affordable accommodation at Whiteley moving forward. And I think that in this area it is appropriate at this point for us to ask for the designated protected area status to be lifted. So in the light of that, I am going to sign the paper to authorise the service lead New Homes Delivery to submit an application to Homes England to lift the designated protected area status in respect of the North Whiteley development site. So thank you very much, Mr. Beaver. That brings us on to item 6 on the agenda. I have Mrs. Knight and Mr. Botham in the room to talk to this. Mrs. Knight, would you like to present the paper?
Thank you, Chair. This paper seeks council approval to dispose of an empty HRA property in line with the disposal criteria as set out in the council's HRA asset management strategy, approved at Cabinet on the 8th of December 2021. Disposal of HRA assets is only considered in exceptional circumstances and should always meet the criteria as set out in the disposal policy and as approved as part of the Housing Revenue Account asset management strategy. The proposed property for disposal is 16 Tower Street. It's a 3-bedroom house located in central Winchester and is the only council-owned property in the street. The empty property is in need of significant works to bring it up to a decent standard to let. As a family home, it has limited outside space with no green spaces for family to enjoy. An asset management strategy option appraisal concluded that the best value for money option, following a significant increase in tenders gained at the beginning of the conversion project, which we had hoped would be our very first example of an excellent retrofit property conversion, have significantly increased, as mentioned. We've seen the highest increase in building materials over the past 40 years, and consequently the revisit of the original appraisal concluded that the best option was to dispose of the property and use the funds gained to deliver brand new additional units of home that are energy efficient. The financial implications of the decision are set out in point 2, and other options considered and rejected are set out in point 11 of the report. Thank you.
Right, thank you. Mr. Tate, do you want to come forward and speak on this?
Thank you, Madam Chair, for the opportunity to address this committee. I would like to wholeheartedly support the recommended decision to sell this property. However, it's important to point out, I think, in fairness to me, I've been in contact with various officers over at least the last 2 years regarding this property and what was happening, and I have been recommending it for sale in that time, as I previously did when I was an elected member of this authority. Back last May, I contacted the leader of the council because of the state of the property. It happens to be in St Paul's Ward, pointing out my concerns. There was also an item in the Hampshire Chronicle highlighting my concerns and with the council's response to what was happening. this council property has been unoccupied for at least 3 years. At various times the council were looking to remove the chimney. They didn't seek the permission of the adjoining property owner. Scaffolding has been erected 3 times over the years with no obvious work ever done to it. And in fact, last February, this February gone, the 14th, I saw the scaffolding go up. Within a couple of days, it had been taken down again. And again, the adjoining owner, who the council knows, was never advised of what was happening. So I really have concerns over what the council are doing here. At the point that the report was prepared, the scaffolding was being erected quite high. Left hand may not know what the right hand's doing. I could never understand why a single isolated property within the council's portfolio was ever considered for being split into 2. I challenged that decision at the time, but was assured there was a business case behind it. The fact that we've lost £20,000 worth of rent on it, the fact that the report says that it's not viable to do that, accepting that the cost of materials has gone up, fundamentally, it never was the right thing to do. The asset management strategy appraisal concluded it wasn't best value. So I really struggle. We have other properties not dissimilar to that in Cannon Street, and I've argued that point previously when I was an elected member of this council, Eastgate Street, where some have been sold and some are retained, and Colbrook Street, where the bulk of them have been sold off. Why did the council go to the expense of applying for planning permission to convert it into 2 properties when fundamentally the decision here could have been made at that stage? I do think it's really important. This isn't general fund money. It is a pity that Monica for tax can't be here. This is tenants' money being wasted. It's not general council tax money. The tenants have been let down. Officers haven't protected their interests. So I wholeheartedly support the decision, but I did think whether I could go the scrutiny route to challenge this, because I do think that this is an example of poor practice, which I find very regrettable, particularly as someone who I think can truthfully say has a passionate interest in delivering inclusive and affordable housing for this district. It's shaming this authority, which ordinarily has an exemplar reputation for its housing management. So thank you very much for the opportunity to speak. I'm sorry I'm being very negative here. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tate. Councillor Horrell, would you like to come and speak on this?
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for allowing me to address the meeting this morning. It is disappointing that after 3 years we have decided to sell the property in Tower Street that you referred to, but I can see it is a legitimate action in line with the HRA asset strategy. However, I want to use this opportunity to ask for a debate with your councillors about aspirations for converting properties. It is extremely expensive, as the estimates you have received have confirmed, and also because of the aspirations set for carbon neutrality. The skills and materials are not readily available for much of this work that we aspire to. I have commented before using the exam analogy. I know we want A+ standards, and in this case you were pursuing passive house standards, which we know is extremely expensive and at the top end of the scale. But is it not better on some properties to set an A- standard, especially in such a setting? By taking us down this path, we have lost 3 years. It seems such an incredible amount of time that has lapsed for this proposal to come forward. and we've been backwards and forwards and asking questions about it during that whole period. In the report, you say the project to date has cost the council about £40,000 in feasibility costs and £40,000 in void costs, and obviously the lost opportunity for 2 homes that we aspired to. As already mentioned this morning, this is tenants' money, it's not general council money, and maybe we should have thought a little more deeply about this property and the issues to actually enable it to be converted. Chair, can I ask us all to use this situation as a learning opportunity to help us understand what retrofitting properties really means and the range of properties that we have within our portfolio. Let's not take 3 years next time. Let's not take £80,000 worth of costs of money that the tenants have given us and actually waste that. Let's learn from this and ensure that we set standards for retrofitting, which is not an objective that we should walk away from, but an objective that we should make sure is absolutely attainable and reasonable. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Hall. Clearly, a number of issues have been raised here in connection with the decision. However, it's not around, neither of them is around changing the decision itself, but around some of the circumstances of the decision. In terms of how tenants feel about this, we have discussed with TACT the policy on disposal of HRA homes, and they have asked us that this be only done in truly exceptional circumstances. So it has been appropriate to use our best endeavours to keep this home within the HRA, and as long as the business case added up, that was what we were endeavouring to do. Clearly we've reached a point where we no longer have a viable business case, and it is much better to move forward. I think we do have to consider the length of time it's taken to get to this point, as Mr. Tate has pointed out, and look at taking some of these difficult decisions rather faster in the future. We do have aspirations to convert properties, but we accept that high levels of carbon neutrality do come at a cost. In this case, the increase in costs would, I think, have mostly taken place even without those high standards, but going to the highest standards, because we do want this to build and renovate to high standards, because it does benefit the residents of those homes ultimately. But we do need to look at our experience and the experience elsewhere. It is slowly getting easier to both renovate and build to high carbon neutrality standards as more builders and contractors gain experience, but clearly there is quite a long learning curve on that. The other point Councillor Tate made was around...
Mr.
Sorry, that's years of you being councillor, Ian. Yes, I think the other relevant point Mr. Tate raised was around neighbours, and I think we do need to talk to the team about making sure that they get much better at keeping neighbours informed about what's going on with these properties. Did you have any comments to make, Mr. Botham?
Okay, just a couple of points for context in the points that have been raised. Would wholeheartedly agree that there's learning from any project, and we need to learn from the time this one has taken. There were a combination of factors that contributed to the exceptional time this has taken, not least the whole issue of nitrate neutrality and identifying with no way of mitigating the nitrate for this particular scheme until the paper was agreed by Cabinet how we were moving that forward. That that added a significant amount of delay to the scheme. Coming back to the point about we shouldn't be converting properties, well, we do convert properties in a number of circumstances very successfully. So we've converted non-residential properties into residential property, and we have converted older buildings from older single dwellings into flats before quite successfully. I think the difficulty here was the challenge of doing. We had a scheme that had very good aims and aspirations that did work based on the projections that were originally indicated from the architects involved, and it is the current climate and the tender size that we're now experiencing that have taken it into that into the position where we're bringing forward the recommendation as it stands. But certainly one to learn about. It demonstrates that some of the complexities that we have in working in city centre properties and retrofitting, and we need to learn from that. Just because we have our aspirations for retrofitting the 5,000 existing stock we currently have, but that was discussed at the Environment, Health and Environment Committee last week. So those aspirations remain. This property had a number of unique circumstances that contributed to that, to why we are where we are today. And yes, of course we need to learn from that, and whether we would bring such a scheme as this forward in future. I think that this experience will inform that. I don't think it changes any of our aspirations around making best use of our stock and wanting to get them as near net carbon neutral as we can in the future.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Bosa. Yes, certainly the standards are an issue, and we are looking at using a variety of different standards to see where the best fit lies in terms of that cost benefit evaluation. So that is something that we will be, I'm sure, coming back to later. Certainly I've always been very conscious of the cost to the HRA of some of these aspirations and the need to have a level of thought and balance around that, rather than charging ahead on full zero carbon development at this point in time, when I think there is a shortage of contractors available to do that work, and there is a shortage of experience to give the full financial picture going forward. So there have been some really good points raised in connection with this paper, but it doesn't change the overall conclusion. So the recommendations are that the disposal of 16 Tower Street be approved in line with the approved Council's HRA asset management strategy disposal criteria to support and enable the delivery of additional new units of affordable housing. And secondly, that delegated authority be given to the corporate head of asset management to dispose of the HRA asset at 16 Tower Street. So I am going to sign that paper. Right, so that brings us to the end of this meeting. So I'd like to thank everybody who's attended and contributed today, and enjoy the rest of your week. Thank you very much.